Well, this runs on nicely from that conversation and about it's our fault for not voting for better. So part of the problem is we moan all the time, about this isn't good enough, that's not good enough. And it's very rarely someone has a solution and someone's willing to put the head above the parapet to say, let's have change here. And so hence I'm standing for Mayor of Greater Manchester next May, elections 2nd of May. So if you live in Greater Manchester, you can vote next May. Make sure you vote for me. So why have I decided to stand? Well, we've had a mayor now for 8 years, 8, 9, 7, 8 years, something like that. And has Greater Manchester got any better? Well, I think the vast majority of people would say no, it hasn't. It's got worse. The only thing you can point to after 7 years of has it got any better is, you know what? We have slightly cheaper bus fares today than we did a couple of years ago. Cheaper bus fares. So if that's all you care about in Greater Manchester, then you need to carry on voting for the Labour mayors because they're doing an amazing job if you just want slightly cheaper bus fares. But for me, everything else is falling apart. Housing, we've not got enough housing. Crumbling community cohesion. We've got ghettos springing up where people won't go from one neighbourhood to another. Nobody feels Mancunian. No one feels British. No one feels English. We're all splitting into these different micro communities. And mark my words, when times get hard, and they're getting harder now, violence will happen if we don't feel like one people, one community, one city, one country. Things will deteriorate, and that's why we need to start developing community cohesion and start developing a sense of family. We attack the family all the time, and that's the cornerstone to any community in any nation. If we have the next... So when Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, stood 5-6 years ago for the first time, he said he was going to end rough sleeping in 3 years. He's now had 5. Rough sleeping slightly better now in Greater Manchester, so let's give him some credit. And I pulled him up on this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. I said to him on Twitter, you've not ended rough sleeping. You said you do it in 3 years. It's been 5. And he went, oh, well, Nick, there's spare beds every night now in Greater Manchester for anybody who wants one. So therefore, I think I've lived up to my promise of ending rough sleeping. And I went, you didn't... Your manifesto promise wasn't, I'll create beds. It was your policy was, I will eradicate rough sleeping. There's people still sleeping in the streets opposite my flat in the city centre. You haven't done it. But he feels he's done it because I've created some beds. And if these people don't want to move into those beds, well, that's not my problem. But that is the issue of rough sleeping. It's not about offering people support and offering people beds. It's about getting them into those beds, getting them into support. I'll end rough sleeping in a year. And the reason why I'm confident of that is because I've been involved in homelessness and rough sleeping for over 15 years now. I've won regional awards on homelessness. We do it by creating hostels. So we look at, let's say we look at a disused warehouse in the city centre. We turn that into a hostel by getting lots of garden sheds inside. So we have then units of living. So we're bedding there, a TV, no cooking facilities in that. We section the place off. So we have hardcore people who've got serious drug problems, and we have sections where we have low-level need people with no drug problems, and we can move them on into better accommodation quickly. Because if you put a vulnerable person next to a chronic drug addict, you have 2 chronic drug addicts a couple of weeks later. So let's not create more problems. We then have them indoors. We then can have the services coming out, drug services, social services, people coming to offer food and support and arts and crafts, and anything they need can be brought to them instead of being brought to street corners and them living in cardboard boxes and entries. We then clamp down on begging. Begging is one of the main reasons why we have rough sleeping across the UK, because begging funds their drug habit. The more drugs they take, the more broken they become, the less likely they want help and support because they're slowly dying. You end begging. You do that with the police, you end begging, no more drugs. They will take support. They will take accommodation off you then.
Let me ask one thing, because when we say we end begging and with the police, because how is the police going to prevent that? Because the way I hear it is that one of the main weapons of the police as physical presence.
Yep.
But that is not sufficient, because one of the ideas, actually the main weapon of the police is the fear of future punishment.
Yep.
So what happens when you have people who are in a condition where they don't think they have a future,
Yep.
and by implication, they don't fear any future punishment?
Yeah. So I used to run Manchester City Centre 15 years ago for Manchester Council in terms of crime and disorder, and begging came under my remit. At that point, we had less than 10 people begging in the city centre, and they earned hardly anything, because the second they sat down, they got moved on. So the police will not be arresting people begging, because what's the point? They've got nothing to lose anyway. What the police do is the police move on. You need to get up, you need to move on. If you don't move on, I'm going to arrest you. You're going to be in custody for 15 hours. You're going to earn no more money. We're going to take all the drugs off you, all your money off you, and we're going to inconvenience you. And we'll do it again tomorrow. And we'll do it again the day after that. And we'll do it again the day after that. After 3, 4, 5 days of that, that person then goes, no point going to Manchester City Centre begging, because I earn no money. I get hassled. Any drugs I've got on me get confiscated. It's not worth going. That's how we used to have the city centre 15 years ago, because people knew. The vast majority of people begging in any town or city are not even homeless.
Yeah.
We did a questionnaire 5, 6 years ago, and 2/3 of the people begging in Manchester Centre had accommodation. It was their job to come to the city centre every day to beg for money. An average beggar earns £100 a day. A good beggar can earn £300-400 in Manchester City Centre a day, a good one. There's not many that good.
Wow.
But, that's the sort of money you
So
can
I'm in the
earn.
wrong business.
No, absolutely. But we can do this in a year. Not end homelessness. We're not going to build houses. We can't do any of those things in a year. But I can ensure that every fellow citizen will be in accommodation, will have somewhere to sleep every night, that has support base there, that can help them unpick their lives and move them to somewhere better. Because at the moment, we don't have that. And it'll work in Greater Manchester. And if it works there, it'll work across the country, and other places will take this idea. And I call this tough love. It's not about being pink and fluffy. If we have the next link. So a few years ago, Greater Manchester Police got placed into special measures. Now, what that means is it was a failing police force. They'd been warned every year for so many years, you're failing, you're failing, you're failing. And the mayor kept going, we'll work on it, we'll work on it, we'll work on it. And eventually the government went, no, we're now running your police force because it's failing. They lost something like 125,000 crimes that were phoned in or reported, were never put on their computer system and went straight into a bin. 125,000 crimes, including rapes, all sorts of things, lots of low-level crime as well. But it wasn't just one particular theme, it was all crimes. That's how poor Manchester Police were failing. So what happened was the Chief Constable was forced to resign. Let me say that again. He resigned.
I was going to say, how isn't he behind bars?
Well, he probably didn't do anything illegal. He should have been sacked. If you messed up here, Carl Benjamin would have you in the office and go, sorry.
He should have been pilloried.
Yes. He was allowed to retire with all these benefits. He should have been sacked by the mayor. But we don't sack anybody in the public service. We now go, we'll move you to a different department, or can you resign? He should have been sacked for gross incompetence, but he wasn't. So anyway, after a couple of years, they're out of special measures now. But the reason why this annoyed me is because I was based in police stations for many years. I've trained police officers. I've developed police plans for them to tackle antisocial behaviour. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to police. We're now developing a knife crime epidemic in Greater Manchester. Almost every day, every couple of days, I tweet the Manchester Evening News about a new stabbing, a new death. It's becoming a mini London. And the reason why is because pink and fluffy policing doesn't work. And if elected mayor, we're going to ramp up stop and search. There will be no carrying knives in Greater Manchester. And how will I achieve that? Easy. We'll go to every community, every local council, not local council, local ward, and we'll give them a referendum every year alongside voting for their councillor. And we'll say to them, in your neighbourhood, do you want more or less stop and search? And if they vote more, they get it. If they vote less, well, they get less. But then when your child gets stabbed, don't come crying to the mayor and the police that, what are you doing about youths carrying knives? Well, in your neighborhood, you wanted less enforcement, so you got less enforcement. And I'll tell you now, every neighborhood will vote for more stop and search. The poorer the neighborhood, the more ethnically diverse it is, the more they will vote for stop and search. Because it's their children dying in pools of their own blood on the streets. And they love their children. And I know that. They will vote for that. That's how we're going to do. Knife crime, antisocial behaviour is one of the biggest complaints you get in every major area. Antisocial, drinking, litter, low-level crime. I'm an expert in tackling antisocial behaviour. I've been doing it for over 2 decades now. I've got many awards for tackling antisocial behaviour. And we do that by zero tolerance approach. Because the person who smashes that bottle on the street is also the same person who burgles your car, who robs your house, who assaults your mum. Serious criminals commit low-level antisocial behaviour. If you can nip it in the bud or catch them doing low-level stuff and not think, that's not worth my time as a police officer, I'm looking for the serious stuff. Well, no. You've got them on something smaller. It's about tackling all crime. And then people understand in that neighbourhood, we're not having any of this. You will be challenged. You will be pulled.
One thing is that for me, when it comes to crime, we have very frequently people who think that they can get away with it. So if, let's say, low-level crime is not tolerated the way you say, there is no habituation into committing crimes. So I think that sounds good, at least to me.
Yeah. Well, lots of social scientists have looked at this and have said increasing prison sentences or punitive punishments for crime doesn't work. Because when you're committing crime, you don't think you're getting caught. What reduces crime is you thinking you may get caught. So when you're being pulled up on the small stuff and then you go to commit a larger crime, you're going, oh, I got caught dropping litter. I got caught graffitiing. I got caught smashing bottles. There's a chance I might get caught doing a burglary.
So it's the fear of future punishment.
It's the fear of being caught that stops criminals, not the sentence they're going to get.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I have seen statistics showing that the vast majority of crimes are done by a very small number of criminals, i.e. people that just will not stop reoffending.
Yep.
They will not stop. What do you think of the idea of those types of people, once it's proven beyond a doubt, like you've got many strikes or something, or once you've got a rap sheet a certain length, that you just put those people in prison until they're old?
Yep.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
They need an extremely long custodial sentence until they're old and broken, essentially.
Yeah, I can't do this as mayor. The mayor doesn't have those powers, but you're right. So if you could lock up young males who, at the age of 18 or older, but from 18 onwards, who have got a history of committing crime and violence and antisocial behaviour, and you lock him up till they're 30, you've then taken a small percentage of males out of the population who are committing something like 80% of all the issues, and they grow out of it. So by the time they've hit 30, their offending rate then goes off a cliff. So those key 12 years, you can heavily reduce crime in any population by taking out a small percentage of dysfunctional men, and even smaller percentage of dysfunctional women as well. Let's not forget. Let's be equal about this, but there's always more men doing this. Yeah, you're right.
Would you reduce the number of WPCs? Because we touched on it in the earlier segment, didn't we?
Yeah, female police officers.
It's fine to have women in the police force behind a desk doing administrative jobs, but on the beat, they're physically not capable of restraining a desperate man.
Yeah.
So would you reduce, if not eradicate, WPCs on the beat?
I wouldn't eradicate them just because they're female. What I would do is I would look at the recruitment process and the physical fitness process, and I would have that as a gold standard. And if you're a woman or you're a one-legged whatever, and you can pass the physical fitness, well, you get the job. So it's about merit. So it's not about saying we don't want these people, we don't want those people.
Doesn't that bar need to be really quite high, though, to walk the beat?
Yes.
You need to be able to restrain a dude who's 6'2", 6'3", 200, 250 pounds. You need to be able to pin him down and put him in cuffs.
Criminals, yes.
There's very few women are physically capable of that.
That might be the outcome of my policy of looking at recruitment, but my recruitment will be getting the best people for the job. If women can't match that, well, they won't get the job. But I wouldn't say I don't want to employ women, because some women will be able to do the job.
Fair enough.
And there might be some sectors in the police where we need that, where we need undercover operatives. So you can't have, 6'6" burly man pretending to be a woman, unless he's a trans woman, of course. So there will be different jobs there that they can do. But if we're looking at frontline policing,
that's just what I'm talking about. Of course, there's many, many roles for women in the police. That
exactly.
thing on the street where you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight someone on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so we need people who can do that. To round up the policing bit, I'm going to turn Greater Manchester Police into a police force. I'm going to reject it's a police service. We'll take down any literature, any banners that say Greater Manchester Police Service, and we'll replace the word service with force. It's going to be a force. And I want criminals in Greater Manchester scared of the police. And I want residents not necessarily loving the police, but going, do you know what? Those police sorted out those drug dealers. Those police sorted out that knife crime issue. And I wouldn't mess with the police. That's the sort of police force I want in Greater Manchester. If we have the next image. Net zero. So in London, you've got the ULEZ. In Greater Manchester, we've got something called the Clean Air Zone. It's been postponed at the moment. It's Andy Burnham, who's the mayor of Greater Manchester. It's his baby project. He's spent hundreds of millions on it up to now, and it's going to cover the whole of Greater Manchester to reduce air pollution by commercial vehicles. So they've got the cameras up already, hundreds of millions spent on cameras. And just when it was going to go, live last year, big public outcry, and Andy Burnham lost his bottle and went, we'll postpone it. I'm going to send the project to Westminster to be reviewed. And he designed the project. So it's now at Westminster. Nobody now wants to implement it. Nobody wants to take responsibility for it. And hundreds of millions have been spent. And it was basically a congestion charge for commercial vehicles in Greater Manchester, which would have been several years later expanded to include my vehicle and other people's cars and motorbikes. It was going to be expanded. It's a money grabbing scheme. Now, for me, on day one of becoming mayor, the scheme is not suspended, it's scrapped. It will be scrapped day one. I will open the books up so people can see where this money's been spent and how it's been wasted. Hundreds of millions for a scheme that's never going to see the light of day. Net zero is a con. We all know it's a con, and Greater Manchester will know it's a con. As mayor, I will not endorse any projects that attacks car use, that makes us poorer, or restricts our movement. We were born a free people in Greater Manchester and will remain a free people in Greater Manchester. That doesn't mean we don't have to look at public transport and we don't have to look at congestion. There's many problems we need to look at, but simply saying we're going to ban cars or we're going to tax cars even more is unfair. Having a car gave the working class of this country freedom. It made us be able to travel independently. Maybe we could get a job somewhere else and take our children on holiday, or we could take our children to better schools. If you start taking cars off people, the only people it affects are the poor and the working class. The privileged and the rich, well, they'll pay the fines, they'll pay the extra duty, they'll pay twice as much to buy a car. It won't bother them, it'll bother me and you. That's who it's going to bother. So that won't happen in Greater Manchester, because net zero will lead us to living in caves, back to the Stone Age.
It's a state-sponsored racket, isn't it?
It is.
It's extortion, is what it is.
But again, just like all the other woke stuff, it's beginning to fall apart. Now people are looking at it, and now that we're in poorer times, people are going, no, I don't want this. I can't afford this. Sounded great a couple of years ago when everything was going okay, 10 years ago. We're saving the planet. I mean, Greta Thunberg said 5 years ago, the planet will end last week. We're still here, so it's not going that bad. But the net zero con will be called out in Greater Manchester as a con. And when we get Extinction Rebellion and we get Just Stop Oil marching, there'll be no marching on the streets of Greater Manchester. They'll be arrested within seconds. We're not policing that. We'll be arresting them.
Brilliant. According to Al Gore, New York was supposed to be underwater by now, wasn't it? I thought.
It's under urine, I think. It's that
The
badly
world
run
would
at the
have
moment.
ended in 2012. Remember, they were talking about the Mayan calendar.
Yeah. Well, every prediction
There's always
about
a
the environment has
fascination with
always
doom.
failed to come to pass. Every prediction.
Yeah.
If we have the next image. Who knows what a woman is? Now, the reason why this is one of my campaigning messages is because this separates the normal person from the woke fool. This does completely. So I know how to define a woman. Do you, Stelios?
No, I do. I was just going to say that I think that YouTube takes issue with this. Just saying, yeah.
I think it's a great way, though, to separate the wheat from the chaff. It's when people say, oh, you need to define what Englishness means or what Britain means. No, I don't. No, actually, you need to define what a woman is. No, I'm not even going to start down that road. I don't need to define it. You've just revealed yourself as a lunatic if you think it needs a definition. Everyone knows, everyone in their right mind who isn't a wokeist.
Yeah.
But yeah, good for you for actually for saying
exactly.
for saying
and
so. Though.
I keep saying to people, when you have politicians knocking on your door in Greater Manchester for the local elections, for the mayor elections, ask this question. Let's find out if they're ideologues. Let's find if they are lunatics. If they can't answer this question, then what good are they in Greater Manchester? It either means the stupid, the lying, the mental, or more likely the cowards, where they know the answer. They just don't want to say it out loud because some of their voter support will disappear. So do you want a coward representing you in Greater Manchester? But,
Let me say one thing. We have a friend of the show, Britt, who's also my good friend for years. And she told me that she was about to vote. It's I think, close to Leeds.
Yep.
And she sent this question to several of the candidates. I'm really thinking of voting for you. Can you please tell me what is a woman? And only one responded.
Yeah.
Only one. And she voted for him. Yeah. I think I should just say it, that we live in such crazy times that this is an issue that people actually discuss.
I mean, if you'd have said this 5 years ago, I'd have been locked up, that this was going to be a political question. And you've seen our political leaders try to answer this, and it's pathetic. And you wonder why we've lost trust in politics. But you're right. Have a look at your politics and your politicians where you live. And you're not going to agree with everything a politician says, such as myself. Find something that means something to you, that's important to you, and vote on that issue. Pick the politician. You're not going to get someone who agrees everything you think. But if this is important to you, then vote on this. Otherwise, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem when men with lipstick are going in women's changing rooms, or male sports cheats are taking women's titles off them. You're part of the problem. So make sure you vote, and make sure you vote on something you believe in. If we can have the next image. So here at Lotus Eaters, we all believe in free speech, and I want to stand on a free speech platform. I did a university event a couple of weeks ago and met Antifa for the first time. They were slightly underwhelming. Screamy, shouty children with masks on, and they were pathetic. And it wasn't just them. There was union representatives there with their union banners, and they were screaming and shouting. It was all performative. It was like children in the playground. And the people on the free speech side were almost just as bad. They were screaming and shouting and antagonizing. And we need to get, and I told them off, you need to get away from this. This isn't a playground. If we're here for free speech, we can't have you screaming, shouting your slogans at those idiots and you sticking your fingers up to them. We need to be the adults in the room.
I mean, there needs to be dialogue.
Yeah.
Especially when there is dialogue, there needs to be a room for dialogue. When someone starts from the very beginning and portrays every sort of minute disagreement with their entire agenda as something that is entirely, it's just evil, then you have no room for dialogue. It's just a facade. It's people pretending to talk to each other.
And that's when those people you shouldn't try to talk to, because they're not coming in good faith. So just ignore Antifa, ignore those demonstrations and stop, and don't antagonize them. But for Greater Manchester, I'm going to commission the Free Speech Union to create a free speech charter for Greater Manchester. Now, as mayor, I can't start creating laws. I don't have those powers. But what I can do is start defining what we want in Greater Manchester that the law allows us to do. And we're going to simplify it, and it'll be a charter endorsed by the mayor's office that anyone in Greater Manchester can point to and go, no, boss, no, police officer, no person in the street. I can say those things. You know how I know I can say those things? Because it's on the mayor's website. We have a free speech charter in Greater Manchester. And in number 9 says I can say those things. And every point will be backed up by the law of this land. So people will know what they can say and what they can't say. And I want the people of Greater Manchester to have free speech. And part of that free speech will be to criticise me. Mm-hmm. And you should criticise me because I'm not perfect. And I don't have all the answers. And I might be lying. And I might be a fool. So you should use your free speech to have a look at me and have a look at what I say and have a look at what I want to do. And then criticize me if you think I'm wrong and tell me where I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. But I want you to have the speech to do that in our democracy in Greater Manchester. So they're my sort of main policy at the moment. I've got a huge one that I don't know when to announce. So that might be towards the end of the year, but that's going to be huge, absolutely groundbreaking policy that I'm going to announce towards the end of the year. But then we'll have some other stuff as well in Greater Manchester. You know, I want people to be able to vote on what they want. So another idea might be when you have your local elections, let's find out if the people would like a death penalty, which the mayor cannot implement. But let's start going to the people and asking them serious questions about where they want to see Greater Manchester or the country going. Because at the moment, we all think we know the answers. But let's get some answers from the people, and then we can start looking at policy based on that. If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around, tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.